Hello everyone, this is Enigma Hood, and I'm bringing you a review of Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, or translated into English, Dream Factory Heart Pounding Panic. But it should be noted that Doki Doki is an onomatopoeia of your heart pounding. At the time of this review, there are absolutely no reviews of the original Doki Doki Panic on YouTube, and that makes me sad. Because I was looking for a review of the game, and much to my dismay, there is none. So I took it upon me to make one myself. Everyone knows the story behind Mario Bros. 2, but for the two people left on the planet who don't know, here's the quick version. Mario Bros. Was a huge success, and as a result, Nintendo wanted to make a sequel. They started off with a prototype that focused on two players playing cooperatively and had vertical scrolling, features that were not present in the original Super Mario Bros. However, as development continued, they realized that the 8-bit hardware they were developing the game on was not powerful enough to handle what they wanted to make, and the gameplay was deemed lacking. As a result, the prototype was reworked into a completely different game that used mascots from an event that Fuji TV was broadcasting at the time. Super Mario Bros. 2 was eventually made and released in Japan, and it was very similar to the original Super Mario Bros. 1, except with a few graphical changes and a major increase in difficulty. However, the similarity to the original and the immense difficulty dissuaded Nintendo from releasing the real Mario Bros. 2 outside of Japan. Instead, they decided to modify Doki Doki Panic and make it Super Mario Bros. 2. This version was later released in Japan as Super Mario Bros. USA. The real Mario Bros. 2 was eventually renamed Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and finally saw an American release in Super Mario Bros. All-Stars. But this review isn't going to talk about Super Mario Bros. 2. We're going to take a look at the original Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic. Unfortunately, there isn't a ton of information about Doki Doki Panic online, presumably because the game was immensely overshadowed by Mario Bros. 2. However, little bits of the story can be found on the Mario Wiki. I should note, however, that the main villain of the game is known as Wart in America, but in Doki Doki Panic he's known as Mamu. He made a reappearance in The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, and interestingly enough, he's known as Mamu in that game, and he's a good guy. But in all fairness, Mario was a bad guy in Donkey Kong Jr., so it's not a big deal. The game takes place in the tale of the dream world of Mu. Mamu had taken control of the Mu people's dream machine, turning it into a nightmare machine that produced monsters and mayhem. However, the Mu people knew of his weakness to vegetables and used them to force a surrender, bringing peace back to the dream world. In the real world, a green-dressed monkey, Rusa, gives the storybook to the twins Pokey and Picky. Towards the end of the book, the twins quarrel and tear out the final page of the story, thus erasing the book's ending. Freed, Mamu pulls through the pages of the storybook and kidnaps the two children, fulfilling his dream of conquering Mu. The two kids plead for help, and Rusa hurries away, soon coming across an Arabian family which consists of Papa, Mama, and their son and daughter Imogen and Lena. After being informed of the situation, the Arabian family jumps through the storybook and embarks on a journey to save the two children and free Mu from Mamu's reign. After all his army and leaders have been defeated by the Arabian family, Mamu himself engages them in battle in the castle. After Mamu's defeat, the inhabitants are saved, completing the story. The two kidnapped children are rescued from their cages and return with the Arabian family back to their world, where the game ends. One interesting to note is that in the story, Pokey and Picky tear out the final page of the book. That is the reason why World 7 only has 2 levels, while all the other worlds have 3. This important plot detail is lost in Mario 2. As I said before, there isn't a lot of information about Dream Factory or the Dream Factory event that took place in 1987. Just these 2 photos of the event showing Imogen and Lena riding on a magic carpet in front of something that looks like the Death Star. I originally thought that Dream Factory was an anime or a manga, but now I believe it's just some event that Fuji TV did to promote its latest lineup of TV shows and other crap. I don't think these characters exist beyond that event or the video game made to promote that event. But that brings up more questions. What was this event? And what does Arabian-themed characters have to do with it? There are a few more tidbits of information found on the Mario Wiki. There are masks found in the game instead of mushroom blocks to throw around, And these masks are a direct reference to this event's theme, which apparently was based around a Mardi Gras celebration. What Mardi Gras has to do with an Arabian theme, I have no idea. But if any of you know anything else, please let me know in the comments below. In any case, Doki Doki Panic is identical to Mario 2, except the main characters are different, and there are a few other changes as well. Instead of Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and Toad, we have Imogen, Mama, Lena, and Papa, respectively. They all have the same powers as their respective Mario 2 counterparts, except in this game, their powers make more sense. Imogen is the all-rounder. Lena has some magical power that allows her to float for a short period of time. Mama also has some magical hovering power. And Papa is strong, so he can pick up stuff and dig faster. These powers that these Fuji TV characters went on to become mainstay powers and traits that were retained by their respective Mario counterparts in future Mario games. However, unlike Mario 2, there is no run button in Doki Doki Panic. As a result, Papa does not possess the same high speed Toad does, thus making Toad's high speed his own unique power. Let me get this out of the way right now. I like Doki Doki Panic more than Mario 2 USA. For one thing, the Arabian theme just makes more sense in Doki Doki Panic. All the levels have a distinctive and undeniable Arabian theme, but why was Mario 2 Arabian themed? It just felt out of place, as if someone just inserted them into a completely different game, which is exactly what happened, and why it makes no sense. Doki Doki Panic's main characters are Arabian, so it meshes just fine with the Arabian setting. In Doki Doki Panic, instead of a red potion, a magic lamp item creates a door that sends the character to another dimension known as subspace. They changed the magic lamp into a weird red potion that didn't feel Mario-ish and was never seen again anyway. So what was the point in changing it? To make it less Arabian? The game already is heavily Arabian. Another change, which I mentioned before, is that instead of mushroom blocks, we have these small masks. The end-level mask gates in Doki Doki Panic are similar to these masks and presumably are a reference to the Yume Kojo 1987 event. Mario 2 changed the small masks into mushroom blocks and the large mask gate into an eagle mask gate. I can understand changing the masks into mushroom blocks, but what was the point in changing the large mask gate into an eagle gate? The eagle gate, like the red potion, wasn't Mario-ish, and was never seen again either. One interesting change is that the red shell from Mario 2 is a racist blackface in Doki Doki Panic. Blackface and darky imagery was extremely common in Japan, persisting into Japanese anime and video games up until the 90s. Mr. Popo from Dragon Ball Z and Jinx from Pokemon are examples of racist, darky Negro imagery that Japanese artists like to use to make something appear more exotic or foreign, presumably. In this game, it's even more weird and racist because you are literally chucking some black guy's clown face at enemies to kill them. Aside from the racist imagery, Doki Doki's Panic's aesthetics are top-notch. The game's graphics are colorful and whimsical. It's a huge step up from Mario 1's graphics, and includes quite a bit of vertical scrolling sections, a feature retained from the original Mario prototype. Quite often, you will climb beanstalks into clouds in the sky, an obvious nod to the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. This further emphasizes the storybook atmosphere of Doki Doki Panic and makes you feel like you are actually in a fairy tale. As mentioned before, this game introduced portals into alternate dimensions known as subspace. In subspace, everything is reversed. All foreground objects become black, and the background turns blue, and you can find hidden power-ups to increase your health or coins to spend on a slot machine game at the end of the level. Speaking of these slot machine games, the slot machine game in Doki Doki Panic is identical to the slot machine game in Mario 2. However, the detail is greatly reduced and simplified and in general looks like shit. Although Subspace specifically didn't return in future Mario games, elements similar to Subspace were used. For example, at the end of Mario 3's courses where the roulette box is found, the stage background suddenly turns black and all foreground objects become outlined in white and lose all detail. It's as if you are leaving your own dimension and entering limbo between Mario's dimension and another world. I always thought that was really cool. Another similar element to Subspace was found in the cannon stages in New Super Mario Bros. 2. You enter a cannon and then are fired off at high speed. The background and foreground becomes dark and evokes aesthetics that are undeniably similar to Subspace. Racing through these levels feels like you are traveling through hyperspace, or an interdimensional wormhole connecting two parts of reality together. The whole idea of Mario traveling through dimensions is a really cool one, and I wouldn't mind seeing a 3D Mario game developing this concept into a full game whose theme revolves around traveling between dimensions. The music in Doki Doki Panic is also top-notch. Most of the music from Doki Doki Panic is the same as Mario 2, except for the intro music, and the subspace music in Doki Doki Panic is an Arabian theme, while Mario's is the classic Mario theme. But for the stages themselves, the music was slightly altered in Mario 2. Take a listen of them back to back. The rhythm has been rearranged to make Mario 2's music slightly more upbeat and diversified. As mentioned before, there is no run button in Doki Doki Panic. The run button was added in Mario 2, but actually I don't think that this impacts the game adversely. The game was designed without a run button from the start, and the slower pace makes platforming somewhat easier since you are usually predisposed to always holding down the run button in Mario 2. In fact, the run button allowed you to cheese your way through certain areas of the game simply by jumping over large gaps, bypassing entire sections of the level. But there is one major reason why I prefer Doki Doki Panic over Mario 2, and that's the save feature. Doki Doki Panic was developed for the Famicom Disk System, which was basically a floppy disk drive for the Famicom. Since it used magnetic floppy disks instead of cartridges, saving games to the disk was a trivial matter. Saving games to cartridges required a battery backup, which increased the cost of the carts, and the battery could fail. Mario 2 by itself isn't the most difficult game in the world. In fact, if you look at the level design of some of the earlier and even late levels, they are flat, bland, and mostly uninteresting. The challenge primarily comes from the fact that there is a dearth of power-ups. Mario 1 had tons of opportunities to grab a mushroom or another power-up to make the game easier. There are no such power-ups in Mario 2 or Doki Doki Panic. The only way to replenish your health is to defeat 5 enemies and grab a heart floating up from the bottom of the screen, or to find a power-up in subspace. In addition to that, in Mario 2 you only have 3 lives and 2 continues to beat the entire game. These limitations produce an artificial challenge to mask the rather bland and flat level design. Because of these artificial limitations that the developers imposed on the gamer, Mario 2 is damn near impossible to beat by a casual gamer without using warps. But to add insult to injury, they even removed the infinite continues that Doki Doki Panic had. Even though you had to start over from the beginning of the world you were on when you continued, that's a hell of a lot more fair than giving you a game over after 2 continues. A game's challenge shouldn't come from stifling a gamer's progress by forcing him to start all over again and slog their way back for hours to where they died, only to die again because they have no ability to practice the level and improve their skill. This is part of the reason why I really appreciate the level design in New Super Mario Bros. U. The challenge comes from creative and skillful level design, not from an artificial roadblock preventing the gamer from progressing. With that said, Doki Doki Panic is a game that any Mario fan should play. Its Arabian theme makes a hell of a lot more sense than Mario 2. I would love to see Mamu, Imogen, and his family return in a future Mario game. Perhaps in that dimension-traveling Mario concept I mentioned earlier. Yes, unfortunately, Imogen and his family are owned by Fuji TV, but so what? Nintendo can just ask for permission to use those characters again. It's not like they're using them for anything else, so why the hell not? Unlike Mario 2, Doki Doki Panic is challenging, but a challenge that can be surmounted. It is true that you have to beat the game with all characters, but as I said, the game saves your progress for all characters, and you can replay any world that you have beaten. If you are dead set on playing Mario 2, you should play either the All-Stars version or Mario Advance 1. But if you want to play the NES version, choose the original and the best. And that's Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic.